I make motion.
And we'll mute Gabby before.
Oh, Gabby got herself sorted.
But thank you so much for today. Thank you for Shabbat yesterday. Thank you for everybody that's here, wanting to learn how to bless our families, how to do it well and effectively, not just through words but in deeds. Thank you that you have provided this information to us, that you bless us, and through that we can bless our own, break generational curses, end generational trauma, and raise up families that long to walk in your ways. Thank you for being here in our midst, in our presence, and within us, and for everything that we'll learn today from you. Yeshua's mighty name.
Amen. All right, so chapter 5, blessing your child in the womb. Does anyone want to open up and share how this chapter ministered or spoke to them? Not all at once.
I'll say for me, it's, it brought to memory, like even what do you say about the father speaking, with all of our children. I mean, even with the siblings now, they all before bed they kiss the baby goodnight, and they all talk to him. But with every child, Brad literally talks to the belly, and with all of them, it's I'll be asleep at night, and he's like, "Oh yeah, they're they're so active at night." And I'm like, "How do you know this?" He's like, "Because I'm up and I'm rubbing your belly." And it's funny because both the girls who were very active only with him at night, they're still like daddy's girls who hang out with him all night long still. So I thought that was something I was doing, not even thinking about what it does for the baby, but I think some stuff just comes natural to us.
Gabby, I just had the stock company. And again, this is no judgment on anybody. So I'm going to preface with that. I personally have had reservations, I guess, when folks talk about calling him the Father. It seems to me that the word "the" puts some distance between us and him, and so I tend to use "our Father." I'm making sure you know he's mine and he's yours too. So what if instead of the baby putting distance between you guys, it's our baby?
Because I think of stories. It's a children's movie, My Baby. But but no, I know for me, like when I am talking to other people, especially like Christians, I'll use the Father instead of using Yahweh. So then they're not, I don't like, for me, it's I am declaring that Yah is our Father, but it's like a way of actually personalizing him, like our Father, the Father. But I don't see it as distance, but I do like our Father better. And I don't know, I guess I just say the baby because I don't know what it is. So instead of calling it, I guess I could call Peanut. Well, yeah, it's my baby, but I don't know. I usually just say Peanut when I'm talking to the baby. Yeah, or right now it's a mango, the size of a mango, but yeah. Usually I think I'm doing that to not be impatient with you've romanticized waiting till the end. So now I have to wait. Just so that way I'm not planning to know the gender and I can just, because otherwise then I'm going to start calling you by your name. And we have a boy name picked out because I really do feel it's a boy, but I'm also like, well, what if it's not? And then I'm like, oh man, we didn't get it right. So now it's Peanut or Baby, but I like that idea.
Yeah. I don't know who was next, Tammy or Jess. Tammy.
Jess.
Oh, it was Jess. What?
Tammy, you can go. It's okay.
I always thought, it's because we have this icon up here. Her hand is right behind it.
Oh,
I never saw the hands.
okay.
So listen to me.
Tammy, go ahead.
Oh, there was just so much in this chapter. I quite honestly, and I didn't get to a lot of it till last night. It was really overwhelming to think. I was just kind of typing that just now to think how lonely my babies must have felt. And, you know, I really don't remember us talking to them. Now, my third one, by then I had grown in, and just knowing him, I think a lot of times helps to know how to relate to our children, our babies, and but I did talk to my third, but I also the trauma thing, because at the time that I was pregnant with him, I think I've already mentioned this, but I found out about the homosexual thing with our pastor, and I was deeply feeling that emotion and grief, and I know he must have felt that, and it makes me wonder, how much has that affected his distance from the church, from commitment even, you know also his dad, there were just things his dad had accused me. He's also done this to my daughter, just using pregnancy as an excuse to sleep a lot, and which I didn't sleep a lot, but yeah, I napped, and she's not a lazy person either, and he did that to her. So I know he heard that, and I was so immature at the time. I made a stupid comment about abortion to my shame, and you know, the baby heard that. He heard that, and so that's very grievous. So I'm not trying to work through that now. There's just a lot. And then I remembered something I buried. My oldest son, that is struggling with so much. When he was just a baby, under 2, he might have not even been a year. I don't think he was a year old yet. And we were in such a heated argument that I picked up the phone. I don't know if I was calling the police or my mom to come and get me, or he grabbed the phone, he wrestled me with the baby in my arms. It was really scary. It was violent. And so I'm remembering that. And he was so scared. The baby was crying. He was crying. He was scared. And I think at that point, I must have had a car. I grabbed my purse and left, and was so depressed. So, there's just so much that they've dealt with. It's no wonder, they have so many problems. But I also wanted to say that yesterday, after I read what I did, I sent them each a text. I sent a group text because I felt like this bickering between them and all, I wanted to address them and bless them. I can't even remember what all I said, but I did feel the presence of the Ruach when I blessed them, and I felt really good about it. So, and especially having them all together on that text, my words can't be misconstrued,
Yeah.
But anyway.
Wow. Thank you for sharing all that, Tammy. Jess.
I was just thinking, Tammy brought up something that happened. I got in a fist fight with my sister when I was pregnant, and now I have to think about how that affected my child. So that's why I was over here talking to Josh, trying to figure out which child was that. Because I'll have to. I don't know. Yeah, it was not a good. It was at a restaurant, and it was very and she was belligerently drunk, and she tried to fight me.
I wasn't there.
Josh says he wasn't there. I don't remember who was there. I was for like a birthday, and it was at a sushi restaurant. Anyway, that's not what I was going to talk about. But now that
That's
like
how
now that
Alabama you.
Except for the sushi restaurant.
Yeah, except for the sushi.
very Arizona Wild West.
Is that what it is?
So no, but now I have to go back and pray because it probably did affect my son. I only have sons, so affect my son. But then I was also thinking, so there was a bunch of stuff that happened in this chapter, and this chapter makes me cry a lot. And every time I read it, like something new pops up. And for me this time, the biggest like answer to prayer that I've had in my mind recently was like, why do I hoard food? And this is not like a preservation or like the people that prepare. This is not a preparedness thing. This has been a lifelong food hoarding issue. And I don't eat the food. It's not food for me to eat. It's not food for me to make for my family. It's literally just to always be surrounded by food and more food than I really need. And the food goes bad in the fridge. And I was like, I told Josh, I said, I don't want to do this anymore because every house that we've been at, it's like, okay, this is the designated food area. And it's not a normal situation. And this chapter, when we were listening to it this week again, it brought up that my mom, when I was young, she used to tell me, oh, I'm so sorry that you're sick all the time. It's because I starved you in the womb. I was anorexic because I didn't want to get fat because of your dad. I didn't want him to leave me. And even though he did, he was with another lady, and ultimately my mom and me lived with my aunt after I was born at some point. But like she told me like I was anorexic. I didn't give you the proper nutrients. And I just felt when I was listening to this, that's the reason. There's the root cause of this food hoarding. And I always thought, oh, it's because we were poor. And looking back on it, we weren't really poor. We had food. I just couldn't eat any of the food because I was allergic to a lot of the food, and everything tasted like ham when I was little. And ugh. So, so I always thought that was the root cause. But then when I got healthy and I could eat whatever I wanted, I still had this tendency to food hoard. And it's affected our life negatively. And like we have a whole room right now of a
Granted, we don't have a lot of space in our house.
3-bedroom house, and one whole room is the food room, and this has been like always an issue. And that's not normal. But I didn't know it wasn't normal. And like whatever. But anyway, so reading through this or listening to this chapter again, it and I had this question in my heart because I told Josh, I said, I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't want this for our family, and I don't understand why I do it. And then sure enough, when we were listening to this chapter this week, the answer became very evident that it was something that was instilled in me, that I'm hungry, but I don't have access to the food. When I was in the womb. The other part that always gets me with this chapter is the gypsy spirit he talks about, where you don't feel like you belong to a family. And we've moved every 2 years. And I changed jobs every year and a half. And like, I even changed high schools 3 times. Like there's just something that was very restless in my spirit. And looking back on it, I'm like, that was a really nice house. I don't understand why all of a sudden that 1.5 year, 2 year mark, I was like, I have to go. I can't be here anymore. And we've lived here what?
Just over 2.5 years.
Yeah, just over 2.5 years, which is actually a really long time. And
But not the longest.
it's not the longest, but like counseling wise, like I've been in counseling to talk to the therapist about this because I'm like, I don't want this for my family because it's very disruptive. But I can't. And so, listening to this chapter again really hit home that it was, I wasn't wanted, for one, because I was a girl, but also because my parents weren't together. I mean, they were married, because my parents got married because they had gotten pregnant with my older sister, and then she died at 2 hours old, and then they got pregnant with me. So they were married, but there wasn't a covering of like being wanted because they had split up after, either after getting pregnant or before, whatever. And so there was just a lot of not being wanted in the womb that has been very evident as fruit in my life, that I can heal from now, because now that I know the root cause, I can deal with it, as opposed to just going, I don't know why I'm like this. Was there something else that we talked about?
I'm sure. But
I'm sure there's more. I'll let other people speak, and then if I
Well, Jeff,
remember.
I have a question. I'm assuming the answer is yes. Have you forgiven your mother for starving you in the womb?
I, you know what? I don't know.
you've gone through a lot of deliverance.
I know I know that I feel like I did when I was a child, like when she told me. But I don't think I've done it as an adult with the knowledge that I have now
Yeah,
of
maybe.
how it's affected me. Yeah, no, I agree, Karen. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, you're welcome. I was going to say, on one hand, maybe it's not so abnormal because, at least of the people I know, there's a fourth of us that have a whole room dedicated to food.
No, I get that, but I mean, like, in detriment to my children. So like we have a 3-bedroom house, and all 3 sons share, and we're actually going to we're remodeling the porch to put all the freezers out there. So it'll be better, like, but
Sure.
not to a food spoilage point. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like I hoard food I know I won't ever eat. I know I won't ever make for my family, just to have food around. Yeah.
But I will say, based on what you've said, that does, because I've wondered why. Why do I feel the need to, oh, there's this really great deal. We've got so many salvage auctions around us, and I will say that we do a good job we feed others a lot. Fellowships, we generally take the most, not always, but generally. We have people in and out of our home. We don't expect food to be brought unless you have very special dietary needs, because the things I have probably don't accommodate that, other than biblically clean. So I know that we did grow up very poor. In a sense, I was starved as an infant because my mother didn't know she was pregnant until she was 4 months along. And I think that put me at 8 or 9 months old. And she didn't, and maybe she didn't even nurse me until past 6 or 7 months, because again, she didn't know she was drying up because of pregnancy, and food was scarce. And I know that children eat very little, but by the time I was a year, I was 16 pounds. And at a 7.5-pound baby, like, that's not a lot of gain. So yeah, that's given me some food for thought. You may need to dig into that. So thank you. Victoria, you were up next. If you can while you're driving, hit the unmute. If not, it's okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. I figured it out. I like this chapter. I can really relate to the part of never feeling like I belong. And reading through the chapter, I realized that when my mom was pregnant with me, she was living with my father's family, and there was a lot of turmoil there. So perhaps that's what I got it. That's my biggest identity crisis, is that I never belong anywhere, which is still very lonely. Another part that spoke to me from this chapter was about the seasonal depression that she was talking about, that person was experiencing like annually. And I struggle with that too, November through February. And I really thought it was perhaps lack of vitamin D in, the winter months. Yeah. But perhaps there is something deeper there. And I intend on asking my mom what was happening while she was pregnant with me. Because I know at one point they had to move out because there was so much conflict there. So I wonder if that corresponds with the times when I'm feeling down and how I could break the cycle. One thing that raised question for me, and maybe even more, not vulnerability, but almost like a guilt or an attack, was the part where he was talking about how sometimes when babies feel rejected, they just abort themselves. They like disappear. Those would be miscarriages, right? And I have 2 miscarriages, so now I'm like, have I done nothing wrong to bring that upon myself? So that's kind of painful. Think about it. So maybe it was just a natural thing, but was it me? Am I the reason that baby didn't want to come, So that's my whole input.
Well, and I would say, I don't remember exactly how he phrased it in the book, but I would say that a spontaneous miscarriage isn't only because of something that the parents do. That can happen, everyone knows, for all sorts of reasons. I know that ones we've lost has not been because we have not blessed or because we didn't want them. It's been for other reasons. So don't take too much upon yourself, sis. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of times these things happen because of genetic issues, and it's really, I think, oftentimes a mercy from Yah. I've been a firm believer since my 20s that Yah knows the children we're supposed to have and the ones we're not. And so really from that aspect, abortion isn't even necessary, that if you're meant to have that child, or the birth control isn't necessary, because if you're meant to have a child, it's going to happen. And if you're not, through one means or another, you won't. There's never going to be a birth on this earth that's not meant by him. And that's right, Gabby. Yeshua is your birth control. Yeah. And I love that you told your gynecologist that.
And not to mention that every baby we lose is safe. And that's really important to hang on to.
Yep. That one day in the kingdom we'll be reunited. Gabby, did you have a hand?
Nah, put it down.
Did you want to share anything?
I wrote it in the chat, but I'm saying on the food hoarding, that's kind of my dad's stories. They grew up, like he used to tell us that him and his brothers, there's 7 of them, would eat mustard sandwiches because that's just all they had. Or you just sometimes went to school hungry, went to bed hungry, and so he has a food hoarding problem or a grocery store problem. Like every day he goes to the grocery store. I don't know what he needs, but he goes, and he's gonna go to Sam's for something. But and we've had to tell mom, like, look, you can't just harp on him too much about it because it actually makes sense why he's that way. But with that, he also very much like refuses to, he does not believe in you let a child go to bed hungry. It does not matter what time it is. If they say they're hungry, feed them something. And, and then also the beauty of it is growing up, we like, well, not me per se, because there was like three of us in high school at once, but like when baby girl, my little sister was in high school and in middle school and elementary school, uh, she got hot meals every morning for breakfast. But like if we had a prep test, like I forget what they're called, like the state tests you had to do,
Yeah.
Dad would make sure that we had a hot meal to go to school with so that we could do good on the testing. He made sure every night there was a hot meal because he was the cook in the family. But for the longest, I used to think there was like a disconnect between us. But then Mom explained he's not very lovey dovey in the sense of like touchy feely because that's just not how he was raised. But his love language is how he cooks for you. He makes sure you always have food in the house, always have something to eat. And we used to joke growing up how if we had like a practice, what you tell Dad, okay, it's over at 6:30, he's gonna be there at 5 o'clock. So you knew he was outside waiting for you because he never wanted you to have to wait. But then Mom, you'd have to tell her it was over at 5, so she'd show up at 6:30 because granted she was in the military, so we would just joke like, oh, Mom's picking us up tonight. All right, well, we're gonna get left behind. But it's a horror, so it there's like a downside to it. Like I hate that happened to Dad growing up, but in terms of growing up as the child who had a parent who had a bad childhood, both of them, they made sure to do everything opposite so that we didn't endure what they endured.
Yeah, you raise great points, especially kind of what we've hit on here the last couple of minutes is that our blessings to those around us aren't just the words we say. They're not just the pretty prayers that we read out of the book, but it's our actions. It's how we behave around and towards those we love. And it's like in the previous chapter where they were talking about blessings at conception. Seriously, I was like, before we got into it, I was like, how do you do that without it being like real weird? Like, like, oh, maybe that one's a baby. Like, I didn't understand, but then it was when he went on to further explain, like, oh, okay, well, you're doing this within the confines of covenant marriage, and you're doing all the things that physically in the way you're supposed to, and that's automatically a blessing. So, to make sure that we're not just reading blessings out of which I read blessings to mine every night, but make sure we're not just doing that, but they understand and they feel welcome and wanted and loved around me when I'm there, that I'm treating them like children, like fellow human beings, is super important. We have this, it's just like walking out our faith. We can't just say we're believers. We have to show we're believers. Be doers of the word and not hearers only, as James says, or Jacob.
Jacob,
Not James.
not James. That's amazing. Tammy.
Well, even though, it was overwhelming, reading those things last night and seeing how much and that's just the tip. It's got to be the tip of the iceberg, really, because it's been, between 38 and 42 years. So it's been a long time and I can't remember everything, but, and then there's my, situation, but I love that it's while they were waiting on the Spirit that it was revealed, sometimes in detail,
Mm-hmm.
the root cause. So that's really hopeful, and it does say we need to take time in His presence, and I believe that needs to be with other people, because a lot of times for myself, we get stuck when we're by ourselves. We can't really. It's like Jules was saying the other day. You're too emotionally invested sometimes to hear clearly for yourself. So I was thinking, and it's probably the root of a specific, I don't know what you call this, like a habit of mine that is just not, I'm not okay with it. And I want to stop, but I have done everything I know to do, and I prayed, and it just doesn't stop. And I do believe it's from the womb. And so it really gave me hope. I'm like, okay, there's a reason. I knew there was a reason for this. I still don't know what it is exactly, but I have hope, and I have hope for my children. I had such hope when I sent that text yesterday that that they're going to see this is not another fad that mom's going through. I'm being consistent, and reaching out to them and letting them know I love them. One of the things I said yesterday was that you are loved. I love you, and more important, your Creator loves you. But we don't. And it doesn't matter what you do or don't do. You will always be loved. But whether or not you're blessed, whether or not things go well for you is another thing. So I want to encourage you to please seek, and I have to be careful of words I use. You don't want to turn people off who have no idea what you're talking about. But, please seek the Lord. Please read your Bible and find out what pleases Him, so that it can be well for you. Choose life. I was talking about, I put out there, I said Jesus in Matthew chapter 5 reiterates that it's not just what we do, but what we think. And so please choose life and blessing. And so, I just feel hope with all this rising up.
Amen. I feel led to pray for some of y'all right now. So, Abba Father, first and foremost, thank you for how you speak to us, how you speak through us to each other, and for having your Holy Spirit speak to us even now. I ask that you would loose all your comfort and shalom over Sister Victoria, and that any spirits of guilt or shame, anything that is unwarranted, speaking to her, would be bound now in Yeshua's mighty name, and that you would replace it with your complete shalom and love for her as your daughter. And I thank you for Tammy and her testimony, and I pray that she continues to have consistency and discipline in sending these texts and just sending blessings to her children, and that they receive them well, that they have ears to hear, open hearts, and that these take a deep root within their spirit, and they flourish, and they understand that they are blessed, and that their mama loves them, and more than that you love them and you want them in your fold as well. For Josh and Jess, my brother and sister, I pray that you continue to reveal things to them as a married couple, where they can bring things to you to lay down in order to continue to speak or continue to gain deliverance and freedom in Yeshua's mighty name. And thank you again, Abba. Amen.
Amen.
As you guys were bringing things up, I was reminded of this page on 94. Other feelings that can be traced back to the cursing of identity in the womb include rejection, depression, fear, lust, anger, guilt. I'm a mistake. I didn't ask to be born. I don't belong. And I know that in my lifetime, I have felt most of these. And, again, when you've got two young people not planning on having children, make a baby basically during their honeymoon, yeah, you get cursed. And then you have these things. And, you know, my mother growing up, she said some things that she never should have said to children.
Probably still stuff.
Oh, I know she still does. You know, things like, I knew 3 days, I think it was 3 days, maybe within a couple of weeks. Again, they were pregnant with me within a couple of weeks. But very soon after marriage, oh, I knew I made a mistake. I never should have married him. And then, like, I had to stay because we were pregnant. And then your sister came, and, you know, just all these things that never should have been said to small children. We were young hearing this. So
I gotta say, for a second, I thought you were talking about us being the honeymoon baby, until I realized you said young.
oh yeah, we weren't that
We weren't
young.
that young.
No, we were ready. I was like, we're not getting any younger, so we got to get on it.
Give me that ring, let's make a baby. That was her vows, actually.
It was.
Give me that ring, let's make a baby.
He jokes.
Yeah. Josh and Jess today.
Josh and Jess.
Josh is over here getting attacked by the shofar. We have it hanging from the ceiling. And anyway, what I was gonna say was, oh, you were saying that, and I never said that to the children, but I said that to Josh. So Josh was like, that sounds very familiar. And I was like, I didn't say that to the children, but at the same time, even just voicing that has an effect on our spiritual health as a tribe, as a family. And so I definitely need to break off any soul tie or curse to that from early on in our marriage. But what I was going to say prior to that was my sister grew up voicing those words, saying, I didn't ask to be born. I don't want to be here, as a young child. And it was just so odd that she even said it out loud. Like, we were all feeling it, but she loudly complained daily, Jen. And I just feel like that has.
I feel like she had the most trauma in her life.
Well, I don't think that's true, but
Self-inflicted trauma.
but I see the fruit of that now still in her life, and so I don't think she would read this book, but I'll be praying for her to find deliverance in that area. Yeah.
I don't know that I specifically said, like, I'm a mistake or I didn't ask to be born, but my sister and I recognized, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, we're 13 months apart. So we were either 7 or 8, 8 or 9. We were young. I know it was after my brother was born, and it was after we moved to Nashville, but recognizing and saying out loud, discussing with one another, wow, mother should have never had children. Also, her father should have never had children. And realizing, well, if neither one of them had ever had children, like, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
You
wouldn't be here to break the curse.
Yeah. So where I may not have had exactly those thoughts, I had similar, and not just thoughts, but conversations.
I'm glad you're here.
Julie.
I thought it was neat in the book. I never had seen it really this way. I'm not sure if this is even the correct chapter, but it's not past what is being talked about, where children being conceived outside of the covenant marriage. I never really heard it talked about. I've never really heard that kind of take on it, how they're not protected, how they don't have that protection over them, that spiritual protection. And, I always think about how with my own children, talking about how it's best to be married before you, have sex and, make a family. This, I never thought about this one. This one is just not one of the, never an angle I've ever heard of. So I thought that was pretty neat. And they described it really well, how being covered in the covenant of marriage is protecting your child. So I thought that was pretty neat. And I have a bit of a slightly different experience with the conception of with my second child, of some of the stories that I've heard so far. So hopefully this will be a blessing, and it's a blessing for me to talk about my second child. I realized that I was pregnant with her soon after I realized that my ex-husband now, but my husband at the time, was a sex addict. So my knowledge of her was in a moment of chaos and trauma. And so my pregnancy with her was that. It was chaos and trauma at every level. But to make a long story short, okay, so when I discovered that I was pregnant, of course, it was just a big mess in my marriage, big giant ball of messiness and terribleness. And I didn't think about her. I didn't necessarily want her. I didn't even think about her. I didn't think about her at all. I knew I was pregnant, but it was just not the focus of what was going on. Lo and behold, when she was born, it was like this angel. She was perfect. She was like exactly what I needed in this traumatic situation with her father. And I was like, where did you come from during all this chaos, all the, physical trauma? Just, where did you come from? You're like this perfect blessing. She was a perfect blessing for me. I was like, and I finally realized, like, what, you came when you were supposed to come, whether or not it was in trauma or not. She was a blessing to me that I can't describe. So, and I don't really think that she was affected that far, as far as I can tell, by some of the terrible things that were going on during her when she was in the womb. Thankfully, she was the most easy, wonderful child. She rarely ever cried. Even when I lost my appetite and I couldn't eat for a couple of months, she was able to nurse. I made milk for her. There was no trouble with her. So anyway, I just wanted to say that, Yah has different plans sometimes. He can overcome some of the weird, sideways things in our lives. And she was a blessing to me in a time of in a difficult time, and she still is.
That's a beautiful testimony, and it reminds me of how Abba will turn beauty, or turn ashes into beauty, and he turns all things for good for those who love him. And
sorry.
No, you're good. It was just, as you're describing this perfect angel, it's just the image is just coming out of the chaos, Yah's favor and love. It's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. One other thing, though, I also learned about, that I hadn't really thought about it this way, was when I was talking about the strong man. And that's, I don't know, hard for me to really put in somewhere, because my ex, the father of my two of my three children, is probably still using porn and whatnot. And if that's a strong man for my son, I have to think about that. Because that was kind of one of the examples that was used, was that the father viewed some pornography, and then, this is just a physical example. And then the daughter, was sending inappropriate texts to her boyfriend or whatever, and how the viewing of the pornography was kind of opening the door. So I don't know. My my ex and I, we have a great relationship and everybody's good. I know he's not clean though from that type of thing. So it's like it's always going to be there if it is going to affect my son in that way. So I don't know. I have to pray.
How old are those children, Julie?
Huh? How many? How old?
How old? Yeah.
He's just turned 17.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, he's still under your authority. You can work to break that strong man.
Yeah.
You and I would say even your current husband.
Yeah.
I think, I think you both have that authority to go in and do that. And I would also, just because you used the terms early, the chaos and the trauma are things that that I would also actively pray and war against.
Okay.
I think when we talked about that last time, Julie, it was about knowing about it. It's if you don't know that there's that open door enemy, when you do know about it, then you have the authority to deal with it.
I see.
So I wouldn't fear in any way because you know about it. You know that that's the thing and that you can close that door. I think that was what we discussed. Yeah, because you do still have the ability to spiritually protect your child. Yes. Yeah, it's not I would not fear. I think the reason he brought it up was parents don't know that they're the strong man. And that's when it becomes an issue for sure. I would still, not like pretend it doesn't exist. You actively pray against it and pray for the future as well. And put it out there that I know I'm putting this out there. That I know about it and I know it's an issue and that we're closing that door. So
okay, that makes sense.
And Julie, I had you. Well, I went to the files. For those who don't know, in the files, there is one called Inner Healing, and it was put in there August 17th. But I went to the post where that came from. I tagged you in it.
Okay.
And it isn't just her colored print, but it also gives you the instructions. So, whether you're dealing with a strong man or needing to break ungodly soul ties or canceling satanic assignments and vicious cycles, it'll help walk you through that so that your son can walk in freedom. Now, I don't know, I don't understand the full spiritual aspect of things. You and your ex are divorced, but that still is his biological father. And if his biological father isn't walking in God's way, so he constantly opens the door and he puts curses on his family. And so I don't know with having a new husband if that supersedes at all, since your current is a godly man. I just don't know how all that works, but you can at least have the tools to help you continue to walk that out.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And for Anna's comment here, thank you for sharing.
You want to read it?
I certainly can. This book feels like a divine gift in his timing right now. My family is a little bit of a hot mess, which I rebuke in Yeshua's name. Y'all aren't a mess at all. I am thinking due in part to operating with no history of blessing in our home or in our generational homes. Just this morning, asking Yah to show me how to make this home of life and not death. I've done a little bit of deliverance work, not even knowing what it was. Hallelujah. I would like to know which deliverance sessions would be recommended in which order. It feels a bit overwhelming. Absolutely. Get that for sure. There are doors to close and strong men to bind in myself and my husband and for our children, 18, 16, and 13. And I feel an urgency as it is, but even more because my oldest daughter leaves for the military in 2 months. I see I have a lot to learn in spiritual blessing in battle. If I were to recommend which ones in which order,
finding it.
Never mind. She's gonna just send them to you.
Well, I don't know that I am.
Okay.
I've got to find it first. I'm not sure how I've got it in here, but in the guide, in the group. I think it's for our stuff. Oh, did I end?
See,
Let me go back. It may be that I need to send you the YouTube link. We did, I guess it was this time last year, and I think in the end they're all split up.
so with the breakdown?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest first.
we did a breakdown of our extensive deliverance session, which we absolutely need to get recorded.
I thought we
soon.
were going to have it in the last couple of weeks. We haven't.
I know we've ended up with company
It's
and
like the haircut.
and
Like, you said
trauma.
we're going to do it.
yeah. Thankfully not our trauma. So I will get that. Are you in the book club messenger chat, Anna? Okay, I'll put the link to, it's a 6-part series, and it goes through and it just breaks everything down, and that will help you along your way.
So it's not even, it's
We
not,
go through deliverance.
yeah, it's
though.
not just participatory. It's also very informative. This is why we do things like this, and kind of helps get you going to be able to go out and do some battle yourself too.
Absolutely.
It's a 6-part series. It's long. Just be prepared.
It's not that bad.
Well, if you were to sit down and watch it all at once,
Oh.
then you're looking at like 6 to 8 hours. So yeah, it's long.
Oh, maybe 8 to 10.
I was being conservative. I didn't want to scare anybody.
That's an hour 20, hour and a half, hour 45, hour 42, hour 53 to 11.
37 hours of video.
But, commit to one a day and you'll have it done in a week.
Well, participate in it. Go pray it all out. I always tell people don't just watch, and don't just have it while you're driving. Like be able to set the time aside to participate.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, and then at some point we'll have another extensive session where it's less educational and more, let's just dive in and start praying.
Mm-hmm. Anna, let's see if I can tag you. It doesn't let me tag you, but it's in the chat.
And I just was thinking that it's probably even better to go back and do it in your own leisure, because you can pause, let the Ruach minister to you, and it's good that you've got a couple of months before your daughter leaves. Not that it'll all be complete, but if you really are maybe even fasting and praying, doing this consistently, you can get a lot done. You can really get, especially if you are sensing like you are, that this is a divine timing. It's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Josh and Jack. Or Jack.
So it's me still. So when Julie was talking earlier, it brought back a memory from a previous book club about when we did the praying in the courts of heaven one. And I had been shown a revelation that the person that was cursing me was my dad's first wife. And so when Julie was talking about the spiritual protection and about conception and the whole thing again, I just realized that was the reason that she had the open door to do that, was because of the previous marriage. And so and all of the book clubs are lining up together. I just would just like to, yeah, just really, I want to say thank you for having the book clubs in general. It's been really helpful for our lives.
You're welcome. I want to say thank you for suggesting the last two. They've been very helpful.
I have no suggestions for the next one. Somebody, y'all can figure it out.
Well, since you brought it up, I was thinking, what if we go through the Michelle Stridham book on how...
That sounds amazing.
Okay, I had that thought as we were driving home yesterday.
We haven't agreed on anything yet.
We haven't. We haven't discussed anything. It was a thought.
We don't get to discuss.
Julie, I think you've got a hand up.
No, I don't want to break any privacy rules, but I'm in Arizona too. Somebody said they were in Arizona, but I don't want to say names or anything.
Oh
But
no, you're fine. We used to live in Arizona.
used
We
to.
lived in Arizona for
Something years.
5, 6 years, something. We never thought we'd leave, but we live in Missouri now.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
There is somebody in the group that's from Arizona, and I know
Oh,
she's looking for fellowship. So I'll find her post and tag you.
okay. Sounds good.
Gabby, is it the one whose name begins with a K?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure we're thinking of the same person. Yeah. Does anyone have any additional thoughts on the blessing or cursing in the womb? While you're thinking and finding that hand button, as I was skimming through this when we first hopped on, the parents providing a spiritually protected environment for the child by being within a protective hedge, the protective hedge of a covenant marriage. I'm reminded of our first two, that while, yes, Drew and I were married and definitely wanted these children, we had, essentially, we had walked away from the church. I wouldn't say we had walked away from faith by any means, but
We weren't really living it out either.
no, we had seeds in the freezer waiting to be planted.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were just incubating in the freezer. They weren't growing. They weren't producing fruit. And so I don't know. That
Belief
one
is all we need.
Yeah, I have belief and faith, and I got my one-on-one, so
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah. That's how that was.
But reading that one had me questioning how much of a spiritually protective head did we really have for our children?
Yeah.
Or because Yah knew the end, he knew where we would come to. It was miraculously there for them. I don't know. But that stood out to me.
Yeah. Bye, Victoria.
And the mother being free of emotional stress and turmoil. What? It wasn't a super stressful time in those first two pregnancies, but enough. I guess it's stressful the first time you go through one anyway, because you've never done it before. And then you were without a job.
Wait,
We were, yeah, when we got pregnant with Kinsey, you were still out of work.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You were laid off.
Yeah, because I didn't start that gig until
September.
back in the honeymoon. Yep. And oh yeah.
And so at that point, like, I was the breadwinner.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, I wasn't without work.
You were without a good
my work just was garbage. What I was doing in the meantime. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Anyone else?
That got paid a lot more.
Yeah. And Tammy, with that, I would say, forgive your ex-husband.
I bet she has.
I know.
I know, Tammy.
But it's ongoing, as memories come up, I'm still waiting for there not to be, I don't know what you call it. My prayer group, my BFF was talking about she could fit right in here with her upbringing and the food fear and all. But she was talking about how now, having forgiven, there's no pain related to the memories that come up anymore. And I don't know that I'm fully there. Maybe because I still have to interact with him, occasionally with grandchildren. There's no I don't feel any emotional tie to him, except that he is an influence with my children and grandchildren, and it's not a good influence still. But I do have hope for him, and I do consistently, you know, when things come up that bother me, I do forgive him again. And so yeah, that's for sure. And there have been times where I think it's a righteous anger rises up. About a year ago, last year sometime, we were at one of the children's tag football, flag football games, and this one's not athletic. He's just not. He's more of an intellect, but they wanted to give him a shot at playing sports. Well, he was like completely clueless out there. It was embarrassing to, the family. And so afterward, I heard, I wasn't very far away, and he wasn't even trying to hide his comments and his just word cursing him, just mocking him. And I'm sorry, but I was like, I rose up, I almost got in his face, and I said, he's a little boy. Yeah. And what do you think he's going to do when he can't measure up, and he knows there's nothing he can do to please people? How would you feel? Mm. And my younger son was right there. He wasn't necessarily agreeing, but I know what he said. He said, I'd be ashamed if I had a kid like that, who didn't know what he was doing out there. I know it. And I was so angry. And then my youngest son said, well, were you? Talking about his older brother, insinuating that he should be ashamed of him. So it's just a cycle of word cursing continuously in a so-called jesting way. And so, yeah. And thankfully, when I rose up like that and, kind of, because he was just a few feet away, he probably heard it, and his dad probably heard it. And my ex-husband ducked his head, which was unusual. And, I'm not trying to shame him either, but think about it. It's a child, your grandchild you're talking about. So, and yeah. He did come up to him afterward. Now, he didn't learn it. This is a pattern for him, and it's going back to his upbringing too, I'm sure. But this is why my daughter finally got wise and cut off. Well, he cut it off. She confronted finally the horrible way that he treats her children, especially her oldest. He's the oldest grandchild, and so she finally said, I cannot believe that you made his whole time with you miserable like that. And it was a stressful time. He was getting ready for a UIL meet or something, and you made him just sit and wait so he wouldn't be a bother and an inconvenience to you. So what he did, he's got the narcissistic tendencies, and so he can't take criticism. So he completely cut them off. So, I hate that for all of them, but something had to give. And I believe it may be the divine timing for my daughter to not be codependent on him anymore at this time in her life, and maybe have a chance to really soul search. That's what I believe is happening.
Well, good on you, Tammy, for sticking up. Obviously, no one else was going to, and that right there is one of those actions that can be a blessing. And using that righteous anger as a tool, as a motivator to do the right thing.
Was anyone else kind of amazed that there is a prenatal psychiatrist out there?
Just one. I got just one. He's got He's got the market cornered there.
I was like, wow, what a neat title. Prenatal psychiatrist.
Why are you not one?
Am I the only one that picked up on that?
I was thinking about somebody else in the deliverance group that was like challenging psychology and psychiatry yesterday. It's like, is that even, should we, and I'm like, well, so this is a good example of that. I mean, our mind is part of us. So,
Yeah. It is. Part of our soul, the mind, the will, and the emotions.
I think if it's Yah-given wisdom and you seek that wisdom out from somebody that knows it, then it's helpful. But you definitely have to do some discernment.
Sure,
But
absolutely.
yeah, I did think that was, I was like, oh yeah, that's if you're gonna do something, that's a weird calling.
Absolutely. Is there anything else that we need to discuss on this chapter?
It's going to be a prenatal bovine deliverance minister. Just make something up. Run with it. Charge people a ton of money.
Prenatal bovine deliverance minister.
Yeah.
Okay. You never know.
Someone will buy.
I'll start talking to my pregnant cats. I'll be like, you're gonna be great mousers.
That's
Putting it out there.
you good.
there you go.
Absolutely.
I need to bless my cat to somehow not get between my feet and trip me all the time or make me step on him.
Oh yes, 100%.
To figure out a blessing for him. Is there a blessing for a cat?
I think the blessing chickens with more egg production.
Yes.
That's the time of the year. It always slow down.
That part. They're just talking to your eggs on the counter. You're gonna hatch into a great producer.
Ours would be immaculate conception then, because we have no rooster.
Me too.
There you go.
Well, if that's all, obviously next week we'll go over chapter 6. And that is that blessing the child at birth? Yeah, blessing the child at birth. So that should be a fun one. And of course, we've got our chat. We can continue any discussions as things come up. Put it there. You may need confirmation or just stop off as Yah reveals them to you. And otherwise, we'll see y'all here next week.
And since I'm not really in the chat very often, if there's something like specifically, hey Drew, what about tag me in it, and I'll probably get the notification.
I didn't get the tags to work last night. I was trying to tag y'all for whoever was asking about that link, and they were not working. But that could be.
Like I said, I couldn't tag Anna. I guess because it's not a regular messenger, it's through a group.
Okay, maybe so. But in that case, Karen or Abby can call me. Hey, there's Gabby. Abby too, if she wants to. She can just walk over and bang on the door. Someone wants to ask you a question.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and stop recording.